Okay, so like I mentioned, Redshift is not that great with rendering volumes, but I mean, we can still get a decent look out of it. It's just quite limited in what you can do with it. Which is not a big problem, but just something to keep in mind. Like Mantra, for example, so the native render engine of Houdini is very nice with volumes, but it's very, 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 very slow. And that's why why I never use it, because even though if I'm getting a good look, but if I'm getting a couple of hours of frame of render time, uh, I I just cannot get stuff done. It's just like just doesn't really work for me. So anyway, we're using Redshift. Let's make another ROP. You just copy and paste the ROP we have here. Let's just call this Pyro. Just call this Pyro, I guess. And we're just going to focus on lighting and shading our Pyro effect in that thing. So let's select our RNDR Pyro. And now let's make a material. Let's say material builder. Voila. Pyro. Let's go in there. So how that works is we can delete the main material. We need to put in a volume. So just right click volume, put volume in volume, and let's assign that to our RNDI Pyro. So that's going to be the one. I'm going to hide all of the other stuff. So we're just first going to be working on just our Pyro before we're going to start adding other stuff in. Let's plug it in. We're going to need to set up a couple of things, but we can already maybe just press render, see what it does. I think we probably want to do a second camera just to have a look at our thing. So let's just put it over here, then go out, and let's just render from the new camera that we made. Just so we have a basic overview of our entire thing. So again, this one is quite low resolution, so we're not going to get a lot of detail out of it. But should be okay for now. Let's go to Pyro. We need to turn off our, in Redshift, in volumetric scattering, let's disable our volumetric scattering. Okay. So probably want to turn off a couple of things. All right, no, maybe not. Let's go into our, let's just first see if it's actually picking up on the thing. All right, so, okay, so let's go. Oh, so we're forgetting something. Let's select our RNDR Pyro, go into Redshift OBJ tab, volumes, and it's already set to use that. Okay, then maybe let's increase the intensity, see if that changes anything. If we can actually see something. Okay, we cannot see any render. This is already a volume, right? Yes. Okay. Pyro. Okay, let's just add our. This is only set up for density now. Okay, maybe we want to just add some custom lights. Just use shader Pyro for now. So let's, in the Pyro tab, let's disable candidate lights. Let's just add one light to do our Pyro. So let's add a new light, redshift light. Let's put it closer to our Pyro. Call this Pyro light. Let's go into objects, enable light mesh associations, and let's just only enable it on our Pyro, our Pyro. So that's how you can sort of enable lights to only work on one object. So it's quite handy actually. And then increase volume contribution, press render. Okay, so we're really not seeing much for some reason. Okay, let's troubleshooting. Let's add our other, or let's maybe just increase our densities. Okay, so increasing our density will now actually start yielding some results. Okay, so that does work. Now what we want to do is we want in our emission, let's add, oh, I think we wanted to use heat. And we can make a ramp. So let's make a ramp. So let's go red, like something like that. Be a little bit yellow. Okay, so that is working. So now we can start playing around with this to get it to look a little bit better, because this looks terrible, as you can probably see. Okay, maybe not do the red, maybe just do something like this. And we can play with the absorption here. Okay, so these things are a little bit confusing in sort of what they do, but essentially we have density. So that's essentially just the multiplier for the density of the thing. And then we have our absorption. So if we decrease our absorption, less light will be absorbed and more of the light will scatter through the volume. And the heat will also emit light. So that's going to be this thing, of course. So it's generally just balancing, just a balancing act of what you want to get done with this. You can already start seeing voxels here because we have quite a low resolution volume. And go through it a little bit. Let's maybe add another light. I'm gonna make this one. So let's do pyro light. Let's do another pyro light. So we're gonna look through light. Go to pyro light 1, and let's put that one on the other side. Pyro candidate. Oh, we didn't even set the candidate light yet, so I guess that's also why it was looking so boring. Okay, yeah, that's a little bit extreme. Let's turn down the intensity on the one, and let's turn it down a lot on the other one. Okay, that's already a lot better. So this one is going to be our key light. Let's up that a little bit. Let's make it. Let's make that one temperature. Let's make it a little bit bluish, something. Just so we have something more to look at. Oh, and you can, by the way, of course, you can also set this to heat temperature if you wanted to use temperature for shading. Temperature. Oh, it seems to be trying to use it for temperature. Not sure if it makes big. Yeah, you can see. So temperature is going to be inside the entire sort of volume, which doesn't look good. So I want to use heat. And like this is where Redshift kind of falls short. Ideally, what you would want to do is you would want more control over stuff you can do with this. Like you would want to sort of be able to add like noises in here, or like some other stuff. Like maybe what we want to do is multiply the heat by a temperature or something, and we can still do that if we want. Like what we could do is we could go into do it in vex or in VOBs. So we could go into RD Aparo, type of volume wrangle, say that add heat times equals add temperature. So we can, yeah, you can see over here. So you can still do that, but this will, if we do stuff in here, then it kind of needs to reload this thing every time. Well, if every frame that's gonna render, like if you're gonna do this in the shader, you have much more control. Like if I were to change something in here, it would need to completely reload the entire scene, which is just a little bit annoying. But that's how you can sort of add details also in your smoke. That like, so if you cannot do it in the shader, for example. So what I could, for example, do is can go into attribute VOP. Oh, not attribute VOP. I could go into volume VOP. And then say volume sample. Something that we used before already, but plug it in. Say name heat. Find export. Heat. Then we could, for example, multiply this with a noise. Like this is all kinds of stuff that you would want to do in the shader. And for some reason, like they just, it's not in Redshift yet. But if you want this control, you can do it over here. But it's just, if you're gonna have a very high resolution pyro, it's gonna be like very hard to look at this because it's just gonna be so slow to. But you can see that this does work. You can already see it over there. So let's say if we render this. Right now, this is somewhat doable still because it's oh, it's showing the snapshots for some reason. So this is still somewhat doable because it's a very low resolution volume. But it's not really ideal. So maybe we do want some red back in there. I guess something like this. It's fine for now. And again, like you can do all of these stuff. Like we could also add noise in our density if we want. We could volume sample, or we already have our density here. So we could copy and paste this. See, we get like if it does it again, now we can probably get like yeah, you can see you can already start getting some detail in there. Let's do it on the density here. So let's remove this. Density in there. I didn't do too much of this in my final render, by the way, but and keep in mind this will, if you have noises like this, it will move through the noise because of course we don't really have any rest positions. Again, you could use those like I showed. I was talking about that before as well. But again, that slows down the entire process as well. Yeah, you can see like if we increase this a lot. No, I don't want. So yeah, you can sort of you can tweak that. This doesn't seem to do that much. Reload. Let's turn down a minimum. Yeah, well, I mean, yes, you can see somewhat of a difference. Maybe if we were to make this lower, then I keep accidentally opening the thing with a hotkey. So you can sort of add detail that way. It's just not that fast when you do it inside of your final scene when we have the entire thing. But so, and that's something I would really like inside of the shader building. So now you kind of understand like why Redshift isn't ideal for volumes. Another thing that it cannot do in volumes is like these bounces that I explained before. The GI bounces. Volumes only have one bounce. They go like, boop, that's it. So they don't have multi-scatter. When you're doing clouds, for example, you would really need multi-scatter to make it realistic. And also another thing they don't do is like when we did like volume samples and like add to the position to sort of displace our volumes, that's also not possible inside of Redshift. For something like that would be possible in like Mantra, for example. They're gonna add all of that, and I hope fast. Anyway, so yeah, that's our volume sort of basically shaded. So let's add it, I guess, in our main thing. Let's copy this, by the way, and call this full scene, because we do want to split this up later in the render. So call this terrain. And the full one is just going to be the one that we're going to use for previewing. Let's add our new pyro in there. Let's just see what this looks like. And when we see it in the scene, we're probably going to need to tweak a lot in our pyro volume, because we're also going to use this for emission. Okay, I'm going to remove these volume lights that we had. Where do we put those? We don't really need those anymore. Let's just remove them. And I'm gonna, I think, reduce the specular on the ground a little bit. That's already quite low. Okay, that's fine. Let's bucket render this. Oh, and let's, for this one, just put it to GI to just brute force. So secondary GI also brute force. See, it's quite noisy, but we are already getting this light, which is quite nice. So if you want more of that, I did experiments with just adding like trying to convert my volume to like a volume, like a geolight, like we did with the beam, but didn't get good results there. If you want to increase your light on the volume, you need to do it in, so over here, you need to do it on the actual material. And that means we also need a lot of GI samples. So that's kind of the downside using Redshift also for this, because that's not necessarily just pure path tracing is not necessarily where Redshift excels. So, but like if you increase the emission, press play again. Takes a little bit. Okay, yeah, you can see it. Let's turn off bucket rendering. Yeah, you can see if you increase it here, it sort of adds more light around the entire thing. But you can also determine the look of your entire pyro. So that's something to sort of play around with, like play around with the difference between the density. So like if you up this, you probably also need to up the density and stuff like that. And I think my computer is now freezing. So let's say that I want, for example, this is a little bit extreme. Like I want probably more absorption to make it like a little bit thicker. You can see if I add more absorption, I get less light over there. And if I increase it, you can see stuff changes again over there. It's really just a balancing act of all of these parameters. And like it was a little bit light over there, so then I want to turn down the density to make it darker. Now I probably need to turn down the absorption again. But it's looking quite nice. Let's check another frame. And again, this is also why it's sort of advisable to try this on a sort of lower resolution sim first, because this is, you can see every time we change to another frame or start the IPR, it gets progressively slower. And again, I did my final thing with a volume that was 3 times as large. So but I see it's starting to look pretty good. I really like how this is starting to look. Kind of like the yeah, I like it. Actually, wasn't expecting it to sort of turn out this like pretty good like this with such a low resolution volume, and also this quick inside of the tutorial, because it's generally when you're rebuilding something in a tutorial, I mean, you already know what to do, but still nice to sort of see it now sort of come together again, like quicker than I initially thought. Okay, so I think I am gonna reduce the reflection probably on the ground a little bit. So you can see, like, if we increase that, that will also sort of make, like, have an influence on how much light is reflected. Maybe do a bucket render. See, it's super noisy. That's something we have to fix later. But again, we're gonna render all of this separately. So yeah, I'd say this is looking good for now. Let's start adding some more stuff, because I mean we also have the debris. Let's add debris in. And embers and stuff, and then we're gonna split everything up, because again we're gonna render every element separately, and then we're gonna composite it together, so we have more control over the final look inside of composite.